radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 137, recorded on Friday, October 11th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we give you the multitude of reasons why Donald Trump should never become president again.
Part one.
The non-president stuff. But first, we're going to give you more reasons why Donald Trump shouldn't become president again in the headlines. So, to the headlines!
Nobody's ever called me weird. I'm a lot of things, but weird I'm not. No, we're not weird people. We're actually just the opposite.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I want to start off this headline segment by talking about our personal favorite idol, and totally not insane genius and tech guru and green activist.
Real life Tony Stark.
Elon Musk.
Just without the alcoholism, possibly. He likes ketamine instead.
Sure, exactly, yeah. Well, he's been making a lot of news lately because he has recently been pushing his new America PAC everywhere he goes. And so far, it has spent over $80 million in get out the vote efforts in swing states all around the country. They plan on hiring, I think, different organizers. I don't really know, at $30 an hour. And I say I don't know because literally the website just says, join our team, and lists a bunch of email addresses you should reach out to based on the state you want to work in. Totally not shady at all. Musk has also been offering to pay people through his PAC $47 per referral for signing up on a petition, quote, in favor of free speech and the right to bear arms. And Republicans are loving this.
Buying votes. This sounds very legal.
Well, okay. The main reason why I wanted to talk about this week is because didn't we do an entire freaking segment about the Zuckerbucks crap that they're still pushing, by the way?
Right.
So now that it's Elon Musk doing it, it's totally fine.
They were giving money to states to run elections. That's worse.
That's bad.
Yeah. You got to give money directly to people to vote for Donald Trump.
I say, but literally,
that's democracy.
Yeah, literal dark big money to influence elections. Yeah, that's totally fine though. Mm-hmm. Also, did you see Musk at Trump's rally in Pennsylvania?
I refused to watch it. I've seen like the thumbnails of him jumping up and down like an idiot.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I'm not watching that guy talk.
You're lucky I almost included a clip. And he was so bad in it and so unprepared that I can't do this to you. It's just awful.
Look for the pictures. You can see there's ones where Trump is like clearly irritated by him.
Yep.
Like in the background jumping up and down, and Trump's just like, ugh. And then the other one with the creepy like stare.
Where he's like trying to shake his hand or something like that.
But he seems
bowing down.
Yeah, trying to be like intimidating with like his stare. His eyes are like really low and he's got like this intense look on his face.
It's weird.
And there is the exact same picture with him and Obama.
No.
As well.
No.
Like he did the exact same pose.
That's gross.
So it's just like something he does.
I don't like that. He also referred to himself as Dark MAGA while he was there.
Dork MAGA.
There
I think
you go.
is closer.
That's perfect.
Maybe it's the accent.
So Elon Musk is officially in the Trump camp and doing everything he can to get Donald Trump elected. Why is he doing this? Well, because he's crazy.
And he's super rich and wants to get all those tax breaks and not have to pay wealth taxes.
Correct. But I wanted to at least let us hear it from the source himself because, again, conservatives are all about liberals taking them out of context. So let's hear it from a post that he posted. He X'd. It's stupid. Hey, really quick random tangent. I don't know how often you go on like X anymore.
Hardly ever, except for this show.
That's what I'm saying. I just do it for this show. Is it just me and my computer? But like, I can't load anything on X anymore. It takes forever to do anything on X nowadays.
It is very choppy. Like a lot of times I have to reload it.
Like, what happened?
What happened? Elon Musk bought it and fired everybody.
Jesus Christ. It's so bad and janky now. Anyway, I'm sorry. All right. He X'd or Zz'd or whatever he did. Very few Americans realize that if Donald Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Far from being a threat to democracy, he's the only way to save it. Let me explain, because boy, I had no clue where he was going with this. If even 1 in 20 illegals become citizens.
This guy himself is not a natural born citizen.
Boy.
You are an immigrant, and he was at one point an illegal immigrant.
Boy, we are just scratching the surface.
But fine, let's demonize immigrants coming from an immigrant.
Yes. If even 1 in 20 illegals become citizens per year, something that Democrats are expediting as fast as humanly possible, that would be about 2 million new legal voters in 4 years. The voting margin in the swing states is often less than 20,000 votes. That means if the quote-unquote Democratic Party succeeds, there will be no more swing states. Moreover, the Biden-Harris administration has been flying, quote, asylum seekers who are fast-tracked to citizenship directly into swing states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Arizona.
And they're not fast-tracked at all. Look at the court system and how backlogged it is.
It is a surefire way to win every election.
Again, this idea that immigrants are being specifically placed in certain locations and are not just moving where they want to move to. And isn't it the Republicans that are moving them out of states like Texas and Florida?
Yes.
And trying to ship them into other areas?
Yes. Okay. And we can take a pause because there's still more, but if we're going to pause here, I'm going to freaking pause here. We're not even talking about illegal immigration at this point. He says illegals, but literally he says if these supposed illegals, those are his word, not mine, but for sake of doubt, if undocumented migrants are then naturalized and become legal voters, that's just immigration, dude.
Right. Elon Musk himself should know that very well.
That's just straight up immigration.
And talk about fast-tracked. He was fast-tracked because he was here illegally when his visa ran out. And because he was the head of a corporation, he got fast-tracked.
Yes.
To become a citizen.
And okay, so fast-tracked as opposed to like instead of 20 years, you get 10 years?
More like a week.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I meant like for the rest of the non-Elons
for the non-Elon
Yes.
Musks. The people whose fathers don't own an apartheid emerald mine.
Right. All right, I'm going to finish this up. America then becomes a one-party state and democracy is over. The only elections will be the Democratic Party primaries. This already happened in California many years ago following the 1986 amnesty.
Oh, yeah. There's no Republicans in California.
Not one.
What was the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy? What state was he from? Republican Speaker of the House. I can't remember anymore. Schmlorida, I think.
Schmlorida. The only thing holding California back from extreme socialism and suffocating government policies is that people can leave California and still remain in America. Once the whole country is controlled by one party, there will be no escape. Everywhere in America will look like the nightmare that is downtown San Francisco.
Who caused the nightmare that is downtown San Francisco? What's the real issue there? Inequality. Who caused it? The tech industry. Like, I don't know, Elon Musk?
Dude, this has so many freaking things wrong with this. It blows my mind that this guy
It's just more
has so much influence.
Immigrant hate mongering.
Well, because again, this you can't even argue for the, well, I don't like illegal immigration. I like legal immigration with this. You can't even do that with this because he's just straight up arguing against immigration.
Right. You can't become a citizen. You can't seek asylum. You just have to get special dispensation from the government because you're rich.
Well, and he also just goes through the whole racist trope that like every person who comes...
Well, it's replacement theory.
Well, right, exactly. But it's also this horrifically racist idea that every immigrant immediately becomes a Democrat.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe many immigrants should vote for Democrats because they're the ones who are pro-immigration. The only reason why most immigrants are pro-Democrat is because the Republicans are the ones trying to do mass deportations. How is this a conspiracy? And how could he be so freaking back-asswards about this whole thing? It drives me up a freaking wall.
Well, he did just recently do an interview with Tucker Carlson. This is just, I feel
It's
like
the same
Tucker
thing.
Carlson could have written this.
100%. Absolutely. You know, I was talking to some of my friends the other day and I'm like, I used to have some Elon sympathizers back in the day, like years ago, and I don't really have any of those anymore. And granted, yes, I live in a bubble myself, but man, would I love to talk to an Elon sympathizer today. Like, have them explain this shit to me. Please, for the love of God. Tell me how he's still a genius now. What a joke, man. But moving on, we're going to talk more about Donald Trump and more bombshell, I guess, news from one of the famous journalists of our time, Bob Woodward. If you guys don't know, Bob Woodward is coming out with a brand new book in the coming months. You may know him from breaking the Watergate scandal and more recently showing that Trump Trump intentionally downplayed COVID, even though he knew how deadly it was.
I'm really getting sick of Bob Woodward. He keeps sitting on these stories until he needs to sell a book.
Yeah, not great. Capitalism, baby.
According to his new book, which was reported on by CNN and the Washington Post, Trump sent a secret shipment of testing equipment to Putin at the height of the pandemic in 2020, even as the U.S. and other nations were facing crippling shortages of testing kits. This possibly was done to decrease the number of positive results coming from the U.S. So not only is he giving these testing machines to Putin, like not even to Russia as like, here, help with the pandemic.
Right, no, it's specifically to Putin.
To his friend, Vladimir Putin, when there's a shortage of COVID testing equipment available.
America first, baby.
Right. Which, one, limits the number of machines that were available here. So, again, slows the positive rate of testing coming out of the U.S. because those were all bad headlines for Trump. And really, if not for COVID, who knows if Trump isn't president right now?
Right.
Woodward also reported that Donald Trump has been in constant contact with Putin after he is no longer president and has had up to 7 phone calls with him that are known.
Yes.
Which, this is like during the Ukraine invasion.
Mm-hmm. And
after,
he was spreading literal Russian propaganda.
So this really, really, you would say that I would suspect treason at this point for anyone. Forget if it's Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, anybody.
I mean, I would say doubly for Donald Trump.
This is something that, I mean, again, any other person, any other ex-president, there would be a full-blown bipartisan congressional investigation going on right now.
Right.
And for Donald Trump, it's just like, meh, one more thing.
Well, again, imagine if this was Barack Obama or something like that, or Joe Biden. This is the double standard I keep talking about over and over
even
again.
if this is like George Bush.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just for some reason with Donald Trump, it's like
nothing matters.
To bring up The Simpsons again, did you ever see the old episode with Mr. Burns where he goes to the doctor and the doctor says he's got so many diseases that he has like a little plastic doorway and he's got all these little like rubber germs and he tries jamming them all through the door all at the same time.
Yeah.
And he's like, they can't even get through because there's just so many of them. That's what it's like with Donald Trump and all of these scandals and all of this illegal activity. It's like he just does so much all at the same time
that none of it matters.
Right. That it's we just forget about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. A quote from the book: "I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you, not me. They don't care about me," Putin told Trump. Trump responded, "I don't care, fine."
I don't care, fine.
I don't care. Trump campaign spokesperson Stephen Chung said Tuesday that the allegations were, quote, made up stories, and called Woodward a truly demented and deranged man. I believe this is also the same Stephen Chung who said the same thing about the guy at the Arlington Cemetery. Didn't he call the same? I think he used the same word, like, this guy's a deranged man.
It's always what every single accusation of Trump, there's a quote from some Trump spokesman or White House PR person doing this exact same thing, just attacking the person, whoever comes forward with any of these allegations.
But the Kremlin went on record rebutting the denial and confirmed that he did send Putin the test during the pandemic. They also contested that those 7 phone calls did not actually happen and that or it was like less than that, so who the hell knows about those either. But this is still really bad.
More evidence that Donald Trump should not be president. It's almost going to be a running theme throughout this episode.
I told you. And next up, let's talk about 60 Minutes.
So as both campaigns are on a media blitz this week, pretty sure Kamala Harris was on every podcast except ours. I'm not sure when we get that call.
We're like Harvard, though. We don't take people that like are just too beneath us. we know we're better than that. That's the problem. It's not that she didn't want to come on ours. We already rejected it because, we just knew where our place was.
Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
Do you think they believed it?
Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris were invited to appear on 60 Minutes for interviews. They both had initially accepted, and Kamala Harris, along with every other media on the planet this last week, did the interview, but Trump backed out.
And why did he do that? Well, let's listen to 60 Minutes host Scott Pelley for the answer.
It's been a tradition for more than half a century that the major party candidates for president sit down with 60 Minutes in October. In 1968, it was Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey. This year, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump accepted our invitation. But unfortunately, last week, Trump canceled. The campaign offered shifting explanations. First, it complained that we would fact-check the interview. We fact-check every story. Later, Trump said he needed an apology for his interview in 2020. Trump claims correspondent Leslie Stahl said in that interview that Hunter Biden's controversial laptop came from Russia. She never said that. Trump has said his opponent doesn't do interviews because she can't handle them. He had previously declined another debate with Harris, so tonight may have been the largest audience for the candidates between now and Election Day.
So which candidate can't handle interviews again?
Right. And Donald Trump has again gone on record saying that there will not be another debate, and he turned down the remaining scheduled debate,
That is correct.
which I believe Kamala Harris will instead have a town hall
Yes.
on CNN during that time. So yes, he is, other than his rallies, and I believe he did some Joe Rogan adjacent schmuck podcast.
Yeah, he's doing all like the manosphere type podcasts, like
Andrew Schultz. That
yes.
was the, yeah.
Yes.
But other than that, he's not really made any big like national appearances, and it doesn't seem like he will be anytime soon. Do you think that's an effective strategy? The less you see of Donald Trump, probably the better. So in that way, I think it's good. But for your average voter, wasn't that the criticism of Joe Biden?
I mean, it was.
He's hiding in the basement. You never see him.
Mm-hmm. Again, man, it's almost like there's a double standard for Democrats in this country. I mean, before we get into other nonsense, I don't know, because even like that Andrew Schultz interview didn't go well for him. I don't know if you saw clips from it, but like they were legit laughing at him throughout the interview, where he was saying things like, well, I think I'm a pretty honest person. And they start laughing at him. So like he didn't even look good in these interviews. Like that's the other thing. He's doing like all these weird like YouTube shows. He's doing like the Lex Friedman podcast and then all these like other like random, again, like this, I don't know what we want to call it. It's like this manospheric intellectual arguments space, I guess you can say. He's just going on there hoping to not be challenged by anybody and then trying to sound really smart and I guess encouraging to all these like young white men voters. And it's not even working. I mean, again, Kamala Harris is doing all these other different podcasts as well. There was that one podcast that everyone's talking about that I don't remember what it was.
Call Her Daddy.
Yes, thank you. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And that was like a big deal, I guess. I'd never even heard of it before.
No, me neither.
But I guess it's like a huge thing and it has millions of followers to it. I think it's like basically the like women's Joe Rogan, where it's like it's just she got like a gigantic Spotify deal and all this other stuff happening. But
she went on The View.
She went on The View. She had a beer with Stephen Colbert. So like she's also doing the pop culture circuit as well.
Howard Stern.
Yep. But she's also doing things like 60 Minutes.
Right.
Like why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, I mean, we know why.
Because they're going to fact check.
Yeah, because they're going to fact check him. That's why.
Andrew Schultz, not known as a great fact checker.
So Harris was the only one to do the actual interview. But then things get even dumber. Conservative Twitter sleuths, or ex-sleuths, or whatever they are, recognize that
You mean former sleuths?
former sleuths, like former sleuths.
Ex-sleuths?
Oh, I get it. Ha.
Yeah. See how confusing that is and why it's a dumb name?
Can the subtitle just also be for this episode? And Elon Musk just sucks. Anyway, these people recognized that one of Harris's answers about Israel was different between the teaser 60 Minutes put out before the interview aired and on CBS's Face of the Nation, and the actual 60 Minutes interview itself. Conservatives and Republicans immediately began screaming about how 60 Minutes manipulated the interview to help Harris, how they're spreading fake news, and how they're secret Democratic operatives.
So they're secret Democratic operatives trying to influence the election by hiding what Kamala Harris said in this interview by releasing a clip of what Kamala Harris said during the interview.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Trump posted on Truth Social. There's a lot of yelling. I don't know if you want to do this one.
Real answer was crazy or dumb, so they actually replaced it with another answer in order to save her, or at least to make her look better.
I also love that quote because the fact that he included or dumb just means that he doesn't even know what it is. He just heard that people are talking about it, which is so funny to me. The New York Post also ran multiple stories with headlines saying ex-CBS staffers call for outside probe on 60 Minutes. And
You mean Twitter CBS staffers?
These jokes are taking me way too long, man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And CBS must release the full Kamala Harris transcript to live up to its own standards. I also saw other people on Twitter losing their minds about this, saying that this was an intentional Democratic plot and that Harris's initial answer that was in the Face of the Nation and the teaser was absolute word salad and terrible, so they fixed it to make her sound smarter. And the reason how they got around what you just said, Jason, was that apparently CBS saw that Kamala Harris was getting so much backlash because she sounded so stupid in the teaser that they wanted to make her sound smarter in the...
Yeah, it was a national scandal. Doesn't everyone remember how everyone talked about what was in that, that teaser of Kamala Harris's answer?
So they fixed it for the real one so that everyone would see that instead. But, they still left up all the segments with the actual clip that they're still using.
Right.
And again, this is my favorite part. There are videos of the actual answer versus the edited answer just going viral on right-wing Twitter right now. And it's just catching fire. Like Glenn Beck's talking about it, Ben Shapiro's talking about it, everyone's talking about it. But they're using clips from 60 Minutes to do it. And they're saying, you're hiding it from us. But they're not. Trump even called for CBS's license to be revoked again.
Well, before it was ABC. Now it's CBS. And in 2017, it was NBC. He has now called for the FCC to revoke the license of 3 networks.
This is so stupid.
And again, as we said the last time, that's not how broadcast licenses work. Networks do not have broadcast licenses.
No.
Individual stations in your area have broadcast licenses, and they're affiliated with the network.
Yes.
But the networks don't have broadcast licenses. The FCC couldn't even do what he's asking. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as a network license.
And I think this is just such a good example. I mean, there's millions of those examples in the universe now, but this is such a good example how the right-wing apparatus and media influencer space will literally make huge national stories that actual journalistic outlets like the AP, Reuters, what the Guardian is even talking about it, have to fact check it. I saw a French station doing did this actually happen? Truth or fiction? And they had to have a whole segment about this while they're in France, for God's sakes. It's so stupid. And this is just another made up nonsense story. If you have some idiot relative in your life who's talking about how 60 Minutes is doing this, we'll include the 8-piece article that I guess gives you the way too long breakdown of how this works. But long story short, it's a 45-minute interview that gets compressed into a 20-minute news segment for their hour-long episode. Every interview is edited, you stupid idiots.
Right. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple months ago when Joe Biden was still the candidate for president, there was a minor local scandal when appearing on a Earl Ingram episode, Joe Biden's interviewed was edited for content. And there was this huge scandal. And it was they did cut out some of his stammering and stuttering. But you would do that for every episode.
Because who would want to listen to that?
You should listen to what our episodes are raw.
Oh, God. Legitimately, they would do the same thing for Donald Trump, too. Mm-hmm. And I kind of would expect them to do that. I wouldn't
Right, well, it's
be
bad
angry.
Radio or bad TV. To hear someone be yeah.
Let me think about that for a second.
You're gonna cut it down.
It's so dumb. This whole thing is so stupid. And it's all because Donald Trump was too afraid and too cowardly to do an interview.
And if you want examples of networks actually editing candidates to make them look better, we talked about the Hannity interview that Trump did a few months ago, where that, as it was broadcast, had some really weird edits in some really weird places when Donald Trump said some crazy things.
Yep.
And we'll maybe talk about a specific example a little later on as well that involves Fox News and Donald Trump. I did not hear for anyone calling for Fox's license to be revoked, which doesn't exist.
Because we also just understand that Fox is going to edit stuff. Duh. Good Lord.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous, until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy, ain't right.
This week for Fox in the Head, we have a double feature for you today. Twice the fun, twice the antics, and twice the chaos. For our first contestant, we have Virginia GOP candidate Hung Cao.
What? You made that name up.
Yes, his name is Hung Cao. He is from Vietnam.
Fake name.
Also a compensating fake name. He made headlines this week.
Not just for his name.
Not just for his name. During his debate with incumbent Democratic Senator Tim Kaine, and specifically his answer to why fewer people are joining the military. Let's listen to what he said on the debate stage about how to solve our military problem.
The Department of Defense says during the last fiscal year, the military services collectively missed recruiting goals by about 41,000 recruits. Mr. Cal, you have stated, quote, this administration has a growing obsession with DEI. It's no wonder we have a military recruiting problem. Can you please explain how you believe diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts have impacted military recruiting efforts? You have 30 seconds.
When you're using a drag queen to recruit for the Navy, that's not the people we want. What we need is alpha males and alpha females who are going to rip out their own guts, eat them, and ask for seconds. Those are young men and women that are going to win wars.
Mr. Kaine, your opponent is saying DEI is to blame for low recruitment. Why do you think the military doesn't have enough recruits? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I didn't understand my opponent's argument. I mean, he went all around the block, and I'm not really sure what his point was about DEI.
Conservatives are really milking that whole DEI thing.
Oh, shut up. Damn it. Oh, I'm too slow for this podcast. So, Jason, before
Rip their guts out and eat them.
Yeah. That's my favorite part about this, is that this is supposed to be an attack on DEI, but then he just totally went off the rails from a DEI rant. So, Jason, would you want your men and women protecting your freedom to want to rip their guts out
and eat them?
And eat them? So I have to give a little bit of context for this. Number one, the clip that you heard from Hung Kao was the second time they had to ask him, because he went on an entire rant about 9/11, and they had to ask him again, saying, hey, this question was about DEI in the military. And then he gave that beautiful piece of gold. And then I also have to say, this is also why we should never have audiences in debates ever again. Because after he said that, Jason, the crowd started going crazy. And the moderators had to shush him for about 15 to 20 seconds. Because it was such a good answer.
Right. I want a military like we had in the 70s.
Where they ate their own guys.
When we got beaten and kicked out of Vietnam by the North Vietnamese army.
Oh. So then, Laura Ingraham did her best to defend Kao and his statements during the debate during her show that she had Kao on. Let's listen.
GOP Senate candidate Hung Kao completely wiped the floor with Democrat incumbent Tim Kaine. Senate candidate Hung Kao. Hung, great to see you tonight. Now, you got them really worked up in this debate. Now, the Daily Beast said that you went on a bizarre, cannibalistic rant. Okay, I don't know what they were watching. NBC News accused you of disparaging drag queens by implying that they're not tough enough to serve in the military. You got them right where you want them if that's their line on you.
Look, this is an amazing country, and we do want diversity, but diversity of background, diversity of experiences, not the other stuff that they want. And there's no equity in the military. And there's no room for inclusion. I hate to say this, but the military is exclusive because only 10% of America can join the military, and only less than 1% have served in the military. So it is a very exclusive branch of, what our country brings to the table.
Moo. Then why are you worried about recruitment?
Right.
If it's so exclusive.
These people are obsessed with our declining military rates like nothing else. But then the second we say, okay, let's try to be more inclusive with our military. No! We need to be exclusive! And hey, Hung Kao wiped the floor with Tim Kaine.
Yeah, don't say Hung Kao and wipe. I don't know, it just gives me Mark Robinson vibes. I don't like it.
And just for a little bit of context, Cal may have been referring to second class Joshua Kelly, a non-binary Navy service member who goes by the name of Harpy Daniels when in drag. The Navy selected Kelly as one of the several active duty digital ambassadors in a pilot program using social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok for recruitment. Now, even then, boo.
But can he rip his own guts out on stage and eat them?
He ripped something off. I have to be honest with you, man. I'd say if you are brave enough to be in the military and also do drag with how shitty our culture is around drag queens and LGBTQ people, I think you're plenty strong enough to be in our freaking military. This is insane. Now, granted, Hung Kao has been losing to Tim Kaine by about 10 to 15 points consistently throughout this, so he's not going to win.
Right.
But it's still really funny.
I'm not sure why they're really so concerned. They hate diversity anyway. He said, oh, we can have diversity of background, but that's it. Not diversity of, I guess, expression or sexuality.
Unless it's conservatism.
Well, they should all be. There shouldn't be any diversity. It should all fall along that line. But the way we treat service members in this country anyway, we're just going to ship them off to pointless wars, not give them the equipment that they need. Instead, most of the funding will go to defense contractors and lobbyists. And when they come back, we don't give them any aid. We don't give them any mental health treatment. We underfund the VA.
I was just going to bring up the VA.
Don't do anything for the homeless veterans after they come back. So I'm surprised that conservatives would have a problem with having, the sexual deviance and the diverse, those dastardly minorities that are ruining our country.
To go off and die.
Right. Why have those good Christian patriots, the saviors of Western civilization, why have them go and do all that and ruin their lives?
Someone talk to Tucker Carlson ASAP. Now, that was supposed to be it, Jason. But then I found a clip so glorious that I had to include it as well. We are going to talk about a Fox News segment with Jesse Waters and sexual matador Stephen Miller. And for context for Jason, I want you just to take a look at this amazing, handsome man.
I'm well aware of what Stephen Miller looks
right
like.
In front of us.
He looks like he's got 2 sets of eyelids and a forked tongue.
We just have to address the elephant in the room. We're getting a lot of texts from women about Miller and his appearances and his appearance. Our audience at primetime believes you're some sort of sexual matador. What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, let me give advice to any young man that's out there. I'm married now, I have children, but I wasn't married that long ago. I was single, I was in the market. If you're a young man, it's very important in election season, who's looking to impress ladies, to be the alpha, to be attractive. The best thing you can do is to wear your Trump support on your sleeve. Show that you are a real man. Show that you are not a beta, right? Be a proud and loud Trump supporter, and your dating life will be fantastic.
I cannot wait to see the text tonight.
I've got a clutch of eggs now.
Oh.
Don't be a beta.
Don't be a beta. I can't imagine, Jason, what it's like to be a woman in Stephen Miller's life. My God, the horror.
I have that thing coming at you in the middle of the night.
Oh, look at him. Look at this guy. This guy, man.
Tasting the air with his tongue.
Look, okay, we've talked about before how stupid it is to talk about alpha males and beta males, but this guy should never talk about being an alpha male. Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at him. He literally probably still gets wedgied today.
Well, I mean, okay, so it's clear Jesse Waters was making fun of him.
Right. I was just going to say that too. Like, this seems like it was a joke thing.
Right, and he just kind of either went along with it or didn't realize it, thought he was being serious. But yeah, he's literally making fun of him. You look like a weird alien creep. Let me make fun of your appearance on air. And he was like, yeah, I know. Aren't I great?
Oh, God.
It goes to show the kind of person Jesse Waters is, too.
Well, right.
I mean, ugh.
Oh, you almost want to feel bad for him, but then you realize he's Stephen Miller.
Well, yeah, and then you listen to anything he's ever said, and that he was and will be, once again, a major Trump advisor if Trump becomes president.
Oh.
He is one of the major architects of this anti-immigrant hate campaign.
Yep.
That is going on with the Republican Party in this election cycle.
God, what a loser, man. But you see this like all the time where like you have people like this who will get made fun of by literal bullies like this. Like, so we saw that with, do you remember like the whole Dave Rubin thing with like where Ben Shapiro's like saying, you're not human to me. And then he's like, yeah, okay.
I still get money though, right?
Right. And like you have all these losers who are just sucking up for the grift. And like, buddy, have some ounce of self-respect. And then have Stephen Miller say, if you want to be an alpha male who gets all the ladies like I do. Sure, Steve. Yeah. Sure, buddy.
Gross.
You can do it, baby. I love you so much. Magic. And it's bad news. Bad things are happening. Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I didn't do it. Boom. Didn't do it.
For our main topic of the day, and I know this is preaching to the choir, but I wanted to just outline some of the more egregious examples of Donald Trump being one of the worst, most despicable men in America as we approach the election. My intention is to mainly just vent frustration that someone like him could ever become the president in the first place, and give some solid evidence why we believe he should be disqualified from ever holding public office again. So not just orange man bad, like let's go over some of those reasons. Give you something to share with anyone who tries to tell you that, oh, liberals and Democrats and leftists, they don't have any reasons why they hate Donald Trump.
They're just angry.
Right. So
I'm ready. Let's do this. This is part one.
Part one. So we'll start today, part one, with the things that Donald Trump has done as a private citizen, Donald Trump the person, and then we will follow next week with his actions as president. So first up, 1973 housing discrimination lawsuit. In 1973, the Department of Justice sued Donald Trump, his father Fred Trump, and Trump management for Fair Housing Act violations, alleging that 4 separate Trump properties had told Black and Puerto Rican renters that there were no vacancies in the buildings, despite visible signs advertising apartments for rent. When white renters were sent to the same locations, they were welcomed and given tours of the vacant units. When confronted by authorities, one of the building's superintendents stated that he was only doing what he was told by his boss. A doorman also testified that he was told by supervisors that if a Black person asked him about an apartment for rent, that he should tell them the rent is twice as high as the actual amount. This suit was settled in 1975. As per the consent decree, which we will link to, no admission of guilt was assumed, but Trump management was ordered to make multiple changes to comply, including, obviously, halting their discriminatory rental practices, training all of their employees in the Fair Housing Act of 1968, putting an ad in a major newspaper every Sunday with a different rental unit available and the specific words, all in capitals, equal housing opportunity. Maybe that's why Donald Trump still can't figure out the uppercase versus lowercase to this day. The government started it. They were also to target Black and Puerto Rican communities with a monthly print ad in community papers and spend at least 10% of their radio advertisement budget on Black and Puerto Rican radio stations. They also had to provide written notice of upcoming vacancies to the Open Housing Center of the New York Urban League so that they could refer qualified applicants up to 3 days in advance of the vacancy being made public. Great. So that was settled, right? They did all this, they complied with all of this, and then everything was fine.
Yeah, that was in the 70s, man. Don't even worry about that.
Well, not so much. The Department of Justice had to take Trump management to court after the settlement because they were not complying.
Oh, what a shocker.
And in something that would also echo throughout Trump's life, Trump's lawyers drug the case out until well after the consent decree had expired, and the case was basically just dropped. When asked about this, Donald Trump has downplayed and lied about this lawsuit whenever it comes up. He was quoted in the 1987 book Art of the Deal as saying, "What we didn't do was rent to welfare cases, white or black." Odd that everyone who worked for him specifically said that no, it was along racial lines.
Yep.
I don't know how they could tell how much money someone had or if they were on welfare or not just by looking at them, especially since specifically in this operation, the applicants that were sent, both Black, Puerto Rican, and white, had similar financial statements. And of course, Trump largely hides behind the non-admission of guilt as a shield and has falsely claimed that his company was just one of many in the lawsuit.
Everyone was doing it.
When this came up in a debate ahead of the 2016 election with Hillary Clinton, Trump said, "Yes, when I was very young, I went into my father's company, had a real estate company in Brooklyn and Queens, and we, along with many, many other companies throughout the the country. It was a federal lawsuit. We're sued. We settled the suit with no admission of guilt. It was very easy to do.
Okay.
So tries to kind of put everything on his father, but Donald Trump was the president of Trump Management at the time. And no, it wasn't many other companies throughout the country. I'm sure there were many other violations of the Fair Housing Act, but in this lawsuit, there are only 3 defendants named: Donald Trump, Fred Trump, and Trump Management. It is possible that he was confusing it with what happened in 1982, which was Fred Trump and Trump Management were again named in a housing discrimination lawsuit.
So you're saying there's a pattern?
Yes, there is a definite pattern. This time, it was part of a class action lawsuit brought by the same open housing center with nearly identical circumstances as the 1975 suit. And once again, a consent decree with no admission of guilt was agreed to, this time with $40,000 going to plaintiffs and the multiple landlords and brokers involved agreeing to rent 1 out of every 4 vacant apartments to black applicants. So this one, there was actually multiple businesses involved, but not the one in 1975. Stanley Leibowitz, a former rental agent for Trump Management, was interviewed by NBC News in 2017 about his experience with the racist policies he worked under. The interview does take place in a very busy diner, so apologies for some of the background noise.
A black lady completed an application for an apartment in the building, a 1-bedroom apartment, as I recall. And it was a very professionally writ application. It was checked and verified. There were no liens, no judgments against her. And she was calling me on a daily basis wanting to know the status of her application. And one day, Mr. Trump and his son Donald came into the office, and I asked Ms. Fred Trump what I should do with this application because she's calling me constantly. And his response to me was, you know, I don't rent to the N-word. Put the application in a desk and forget about it.
Cool.
So that's how they treated black applicants at Trump Management. There are also many other lawsuits for discrimination against Donald Trump. We don't have time to get into all of them, but again, it certainly paints a picture.
But that's like the only thing he did, though, so it's like not that big of a deal, right?
Well, now we'll move into the sexual abuse and harassment section, which this could have been 3 episodes just on its own, but I will try to be brief. Jeffrey Epstein connections. In a 2002 profile of Jeffrey Epstein for New York Magazine, Donald Trump provided the following quote: "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life."
Oh, no.
And according to flight logs that were released during the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, Trump flew with Epstein at least 7 times in the 90s. One of the victims of Epstein and Maxwell, Virginia Guffrey, testified that she had been recruited by Maxwell while working as a 17-year-old spa attendant at Mar-a-Lago. She also stated that she had seen Donald Trump at Epstein's home and added that the artwork and photos that Epstein openly displayed should have alerted anyone that he was a predator. Her quote, "These are salacious acts of girls, young girls, doing things to each other that would be considered child pornography. If you walked foot into Jeffrey Epstein's house and you went in there and you continued to be an acquaintance of his, then you would have to know what was going on there."
Jesus. Okay.
In a June interview with Fox and Friends, Donald Trump was asked if he would declassify government documents that have spawned conspiracy theories, including the so-called Epstein files.
If you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these, would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
do you think that would restore trust? help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there, because that was a weird situation, and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I'd go a long way toward that one. The other stuff I would.
Doesn't know much about Epstein.
Yeah, well, I don't, some of that might be fake, some names that might appear or some things that might come up. That might be, that might not be real. I don't know about that one.
But the JFK stuff, that's all real.
No problem there. 9/11, no, right away. But Epstein, I don't know. We'll have to look at it and see first. Maybe have to redact some things. And as a callback to earlier in the episode, this interview was initially aired with all of the backtracking after Donald Trump said he would declassify the documents removed. So when he was like, yeah, I would, it just stopped right there.
Nice.
Let's revoke Fox News' broadcasting license. So now let's move to the section that I call creepy behavior, the Miss Teen USA allegations. Donald Trump owned and operated the Miss Universe organization from 1996 until 2015, which he had to sell it after his comments about Mexican immigrants all being rapists and murderers lost them a lot of their sponsors and had one of their broadcast partners, Univision, drop out. So after that, he had to sell it. But that also includes the Miss USA and Miss Teen USA pageants. They say scholarships. They're pageants.
They're pageants.
5 women who competed in the 1997 Miss Teen USA beauty pageant said Donald Trump walked into the dressing room while contestants, some as young as 15, were changing. One quote from Maria Bellado, the former Miss Vermont Teen USA, "I remember putting on my dress really quick because I was like, oh my God, there's a man in here." She recalled Trump saying something like, "Don't worry, ladies, I've seen it all before."
Yeah. Oh, no.
You know how many times I've been on the Lolita Express? I've been to Epstein Island. Nothing will shock me. Trump even openly admitted to being a creep at the pageants during a 2005 appearance on The Howard Stern Show.
Well, I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that everything is good. You're there. Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
Oh, what the? No.
It's okay, I get away with it. It's totally fine, because I have money. It's okay. Trump has also famously been a huge creep about and around his own daughter, Ivanka. There's so much of this. I only grabbed a couple because we wouldn't have time. On a 2006 interview on The View, with Ivanka sitting right next to him, Donald Trump was asked what he would do if she was in Playboy.
All right, I'm afraid to ask this question, but what would you do? Playboy put Ivanka on the cover of the magazine, and she had not.
This is going to be an interesting answer.
He doesn't even want you to have a drink. I know him. So
it would be really disappointing. Not really. But it would depend on what was inside the magazine.
If she posed, it would be fine. But if they put her picture on...
Yeah, but it depends on what goes inside the magazine.
Well, see, that's her gripe. That's this girl's gripe.
And
people assume there'll be nude photos.
Right, you do assume that with Playboy.
Okay,
but if there weren't, you wouldn't have an issue with it then. If they were using her to...
I don't think Ivanka would do that inside the magazine, although she does have a very nice figure. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop. You know what? You are sick.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. Well, you're known for saying outrageous things, Mr. Trump.
Who are you, Woody Allen?
That's so outrageous.
Right. And the audience starts clapping.
Jesus.
And they weren't even trying to talk about her posing nude for Playboy. It was supposed to be a larger point about Playboy using people to gain circulation by putting them on the cover.
Right.
When there's not even nude photos of them or whatever inside. That was supposed to be where they were going with that question. And instead, he had to be super creep.
Ew. God.
Also, during an appearance on the Wendy Williams show in 2013, also alongside Ivanka, in a clip that was later removed from the Wendy Williams show YouTube page.
We want to know a little bit more about
right, you guys. So we play this game here. It's called Fave 5. I'll ask the question. Ivanka, you answer first, and then Dad, you answer also.
This is tough.
Okay, Ivanka, what's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
Why? Why would you
do that?
Answer that. That's so weird. That's such a weird, creepy thing to say.
You know, I get that we were kind of doing this for like the 2024 election. This really hurts me knowing that Trump got elected once.
After, yeah.
Well, after all this. And remember, like, this was like the talk of 2016.
Yeah.
And it didn't prevent him from being president. Terrifying, man. Terrifying.
And you can find so many pictures of him with a teenage Ivanka, like, sitting on his lap. Very inappropriate hand placement.
Yeah.
It's bad. And there's so much of it. And there's so many things that it didn't include because there's not, like, sourced very well, of staffers in the White House saying that Donald Trump would make really inappropriate comments about dreaming about having sex with Ivanka, things like that. Yeah, I know. That, you know, I can't really link to anything. I don't have sources. There's nobody going on record. It's all things from books. So I didn't include them, but if you look for it, they're all out there. It's worse than this. But these are the things, like, literally in his own words, of his very inappropriate relationship with his own daughter. So now let's move on to the fact that Donald Trump has been accused of rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment, including non-consensual kissing or groping, by at least 25 women since the 1970s. He's the White Cosby. And speaking of things that we ignored in 2016, in 2005, Donald Trump was filming a story with Access Hollywood about appearing on a soap opera, Days of Our Lives. Microphones were rolling when Trump and Access Hollywood host Billy Bush spotted Ariane Zucker, who was there to escort them to the set. She was an actress on the soap opera.
She's your girl's hot as shit in the purple.
Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes, the Donald has scored.
Whoa.
Oh, my man.
Maybe it's a different one.
Better not be the publicist. No, it's her.
Yeah, that's her, with the gold. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
Look at those legs. All I can see is the legs.
No, it looks good.
He, of course, played this off as locker room talk.
Yep.
Just, you know, how you talk with the boys doesn't mean anything. Except Donald Trump has had a long history of being accused of doing exactly what he says he does by, as we said, at least 25 women. This is, again, just the snapshot. There is a literal entire Wikipedia page dedicated
to it. Oh my
to
God.
just all of Donald Trump's sexual assault, harassment, rape allegations, which we will link to, but here's his sampling that might paint some kind of picture for someone who says that he just starts kissing people and grabbing them inappropriately when he sees them. Jill Harth alleged that Trump assaulted her several times. Harth has stated that in December 1992, while dining with Trump and her then-boyfriend George Haraney, Trump attempted to put his hands between her legs. Harth and Haraney visited Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida in January of 1993 for a contract signing celebration. Trump, according to Harth, offered her a tour before pulling her into an empty bedroom of his daughter Ivanka. Quote, "I was admiring the decoration, and next thing I know, he's pushing me against a wall and it has his hands all over me. He was trying to kiss me. I was freaking out." After she became engaged, Harth alleges Trump began to stalk her. Harth filed a lawsuit in 1997 in which she accused Trump of non-consensual groping of her body and relentless sexual harassment. The suit was dropped after her now husband, George Haraney, settled with Trump for an undisclosed amount in a lawsuit that claimed Trump had backed out of a business deal.
Yeah, because that's how that should work.
Right. Summer Zervos was a contestant on the 5th season of The Apprentice. In 2007, the year after the show aired, she contacted Trump about a job, and he invited her to meet him at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Zervos said that Trump Trump was sexually suggestive during their meeting, kissing her open-mouthed, groping her breasts, and thrusting his genitals on her.
Oh, no.
She also said that his behavior was aggressive and not consensual. Alva Johnson alleged that Trump forcibly kissed her at a rally in Florida in August 2016 while she was working on his 2016 presidential campaign.
Cool. While he was running to become president.
Jessica Leeds, who was upgraded to a first-class seat on a flight that Donald Trump was on in the early 80s, alleged that about 45 minutes after takeoff, Trump lifted the armrest and began touching her, grabbing her breasts, and tried to put his hand up her skirt. He was like an octopus. His hands were everywhere. It was an assault. They let you do it. Former model Amy Doris said that she and her boyfriend, Jason Bin, attended the 1997 U.S. Open with Donald Trump, who Bin had described as his best friend. She alleges that Trump groped and kissed her without her consent at the event. His hands were very gropey and all over my butt, my breasts, my back, everything. I felt trapped. It felt like there were tentacles on me that I couldn't rip off. I was trying to get his arms off of me, and they would not come off because I wasn't strong enough. Miss Utah 1997, so the same year that Trump is accused of going backstage at Miss Teen USA, Temple Taggart McDowell accused Trump of unwanted kisses and embraces that left McDowell and one of her chaperones so uncomfortable that she claimed she was instructed not to be left in a room alone with him again. Nini Laaksonen, Miss Finland 2006, appeared with Trump on The Late Show with David Letterman on July 26, 2006. Laaksonen claims that before they went on the air, Trump grabbed her butt. He really grabbed my butt. I don't think anybody saw it, but I flinched and thought, what is happening? Cassandra Searles, Miss Washington 2013, said Trump was continually groping her buttocks and had asked her to go to his hotel room. In 2005, Rachel Crooks was a 22-year-old receptionist at Bayrock Group, a real estate investment and development company in Trump Tower in Manhattan. She says she encountered Trump in an elevator in the building one morning and turned to introduce herself. They shook hands, but Trump would not let go. Instead, he began kissing her cheeks, then directly on the mouth.
What the hell is happening? Jason,
I just start kissing him when I see him.
Oh my God. Someone punched the guy in the face.
And then, of course, E. Jean Carroll said that in late 1995 or early 1996, while leaving the Bergdorf Goodman department store in New York City, she ran into Donald Trump, who asked for help buying a gift for a woman. She said that after talking about lingerie, they ended up in a dressing room together, the door of which was shut, and Trump forcibly kissed her, pulled down her tights, and raped her before she was able to escape. Trump has been found liable in a civil court for sexual abuse and defamation multiple times in relation to those accusations.
And that's because these are all recent court cases that finalized.
Right. So that's why that story in particular has been in the news. Like we're literally on the knife's edge of electing a rapist president.
I mean, the dude's leading in the polls right now, man. It's not great. Next up, we're not going to go too much into this because I don't want to reiterate too much of what we've already covered in a previous episode, but we have to talk about the hush money case with Stormy Daniels, where not only did he have sex and an affair with a porn star, and it was
while his wife was pregnant.
And you can listen to all the terrible details that Stormy gave during her testimony if you really want to. I'm not going to give them to you, but they're about the same as what you just heard. He ran an entire scheme with the National Enquirer to make sure that they would catch and dump all stories relating to the Stormy Daniels issues during Trump's
catch and kill.
Catch and kill. Thank you. That's what it is. During Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Scummy, scummy, scummy. And speaking of scummy, we're going to talk about business fraud now, because of course, why would he be a good business person when he acts like this in his personal life? Let's start with Trump University, where Trump had to pay $25 million to more than 6,000 students he defrauded at his Trump University. Students paid anywhere from $1,500 to $35,000 for courses on, quote, real estate investment secrets taught by instructors handpicked by Donald Trump himself. Students claimed that the promised Donald Trump investment techniques were mostly stuff that you could find on the internet, some of which was illegal in some of the states where the seminars took place, and that the promised mentoring was worthless or non-existent, and that the instructors were unqualified, and that they were definitely not handpicked by Donald Trump as he claimed.
Yeah, they could have been.
I mean, knowing what we know about Donald Trump's business practices, they definitely could have been.
Right.
It's also worth noting that Trump stated publicly that the judge was biased against him because he was a Mexican.
And this is the guy that wants to eliminate the Department of Education and privatize all schooling in America.
Oh, don't you dare take that point with me. That's next week. We're going to get into that. Coming for you, Betsy DeVos. Next up, let's go to the Trump Foundation. In April of 2016, Fox News reported that more than 2 months after Trump said he raised $6 million for military veterans at a pre-Iowa caucus fundraiser, most of the organizations targeted to receive the money have gotten less than half that amount, and they just kept the rest. Trump was also fined $2 million for misusing charity funds from his foundation. He admitted, among other things, to arranging for the charity to pay $10,000 for a 6-foot portrait of him. He also agreed to pay back $11,525 in foundation funds that he spent on sports memorabilia and champagne at a charity gala. And I don't know if you remember this, but I remember the 6-foot portrait scandal. Do you remember that? Like, this is what we're doing. Like, we just forgot that he just did that.
Right. Well, it's like everything he's trying to hawk right now, that really seems like illegal campaign funding.
Right. Among other things, Trump acknowledged in a legal filing that he allowed his presidential campaign staff to coordinate with the Trump Foundation in holding a fundraiser for veterans during the run-up to the 2016 Iowa caucuses. The event was designed to further Mr. Trump's political campaign, according to the judge. Yeah, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, it's okay. There's no actual repercussions for doing that, so...
Yeah, because, campaign fraud is just whatever. Let's turn our attention to other practices, including the Trump Organization. We actually talked about this in recent episodes as well, where a court in New York ruled that Trump had to pay a penalty of $355 million and with about $100 million in interest, with a final coming to $464 million total for fraudulently increasing and valuing his properties in New York. Don Jr. and Eric Trump were also required to pay penalties of nearly $5 million each. Also part of the ruling, Trump had been banned for 3 years from serving in a top role at a New York company or seeking loans from banks registered in the state. His sons have also been banned for 2 years. We are about to have a guy who has been banned from literally doing business in his home state.
Well, it's okay. Almost all of it was overturned by a judge that he appointed.
In his ruling, the judge said the defendant's complete lack of contrition and remorse borders on pathological. And also, just to finish this little fun part out, I was going through our old episodes just to find some more stuff because, man, there's just too much. There was just way too much stuff to talk about how bad Donald Trump is. And I was going through some of the old articles that we were citing in previous episodes. And this one is from a CBS article I'll include in the show notes. And this is what the CBS article said. Here is a list of Donald Trump's legal losses in New York, and it's already getting lengthy. In December 2022, a Manhattan jury found 2 Trump Organization companies guilty of 17 felonies related to tax evasion. The company was ordered to pay a $1.6 million fine, and the case landed its former CFO behind bars. That was Weisselberg, if you guys remember that name. On March 30th, 2023, a New York grand jury in Manhattan indicted Trump on 34 felony counts of falsification of business records.
That was in connection to the Stormy Daniels case.
5 weeks later, a federal jury in New York found Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation in one of 2 civil lawsuits filed by the writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump was ordered to pay her $5 million. We just talked about that. In September of 2023, a state judge found Trump and his company liable for a decades-long fraud scheme in a pretrial ruling. In January, another federal jury found Trump liable for defaming Carroll. We just talked about that. The jury awarded her another $83 million. And on Friday, the judge in the civil fraud case issued his final ruling saying Trump must pay $354 million plus nearly $100 million in interest. This dude...
Yeah, from the ruling that we talked about.
Yes. So this dude is getting fined up the wazoo for how criminal his business practices is.
Right. So he's a racist who has constantly flaunted the law to make people's lives worse. We're already struggling. He is a sexual predator who has affected the lives of at least dozens of women. And he is a criminal con man running what I would describe as a organized crime corporation.
I mean, we didn't even get into like the multitude of stories about Donald Trump just scamming people throughout like his construction permits and things like that too, where he would just like leave in the middle of a project and then like just screw over all the construction workers.
Or all of the many times that he declared bankruptcy and left his business partners holding the bag.
Yep.
All of those things are unfortunately in this country legal. They're still scummy.
Yeah, he's just a scumbag,
unethical and immoral, but he also can't stop breaking the law on top of just being a scumbag. And then again, on top of everything else, he's a compulsive liar who cannot speak for more than 5 seconds without saying something that is provably untrue. We could have made 10 episodes just on how bad of a person Donald Trump is. But yet, in less than a month, half the country is going to vote for him to be the next president. It's terrifying.
It absolutely is. And to make it more terrifying, we're going to continue this next week with our part 2. We discussed a bunch of personal stuff this week. Now we're going to talk about all the crappy things that he did as president and that he's probably going to continue doing as president if he gets elected again.
See you there.
Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.
Wow.